Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive into the winter 2026 anime season. And, well, the first thing that just jumps out from all the analysis is that this is a genuine historical anomaly.
It is. I mean, we're talking about a concentration of high-value, sequel-driven IPs all hitting at the same time. It's unprecedented.
A battle for global attention, really.
That's the perfect way to put it. So for you, the listener, the real challenge this season isn't finding something good to watch. It's navigating the sheer overload of information. You've got these huge sequels, new complex stories.
So much.
So our mission today is to, cut through that noise. We'll focus on the big name sequels. We'll dissect some of the surprising production stuff happening behind the scenes and really try to understand where the industry is going with all these new genre benders.
And we've kind of broken this down into 3 key areas for you. First up is what we're calling the returning Triumvirate Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, the fan favorite Frieren Season 2, and the big strategic win Oshi no Ko Season 3.
Then second, we're going to look at the end games for some legacy franchises. We're talking the big conclusions for Golden Kamuy and the Trigun reimagining, Trigun Stargaze.
And finally, we'll get into the new guard. These are the really intriguing high-concept shows like the critically acclaimed Josei drama journal with Witch and the social commentary thriller The Darwin Incident. All right, let's start with the anchors of the whole season, the Triumvirate. These are the shows driving that global engagement, and leading the charge has to be the apex of dark shonen, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, premiering January 8th from MPA, of course.
And this is a massive arc they're adapting. Right after the absolute catastrophe of the Shibuya incident, we are diving straight into the Culling Game.
Which is brutal.
It is. Yuji Itadori is no longer just a high school kid with a curse. He is officially a public enemy. The whole thing is structured like this horrific battle royale, designed to just push the entire sorcerer world to its breaking point.
And one of the key strategic insights here, something the source material points out, is how this arc really forces the secondary characters to step up in a huge way. Yuji's isolated, so you get players like Maki Zenin and Kinji Hikari carrying, well, a lot of the narrative and emotional weight.
Right, and it starts immediately. That first big confrontation is between Yuji and Yuta Okotsu, who's the strongest special grade sorcerer after Gojo. It's a very calculated move to deepen the whole roster of characters, which, future-proofs the franchise.
And we should mention, right alongside JJK, another action cornerstone is premiering, Hell's Paradise Season 2, on January 11th.
Yeah, while it might not be as universally known as the Triumvirate, its dark fantasy action makes it another really important anchor for the Wood season.
Okay, so let's shift gears. From the visceral action of JJK to the profound slow-burn success of Frieren. Beyond Journey's End Season 2, that's premiering January 16th from Madhouse.
Frieren was such a critical phenomenon. It really resonated by exploring mortality through the eyes of an ancient elf. Season 1 was all about quiet grief, the meaning of friendship. Season 2, though, is expected to cover the Golden Land arc, which is a huge fan favorite from the manga. The journey continues, but the bonds between Frieren, Fern, and Stark are about to be tested by, well, a lot more conflict.
What I found interesting was that Crunchyroll didn't just license this. They went all in, securing worldwide streaming rights, and specifically including the Indian subcontinent. That's a huge economic signal about its prestige.
It absolutely is. They know this show will dominate the conversation this winter. And the last member of this group is what the sources are calling a major strategic acquisition. Oshi no Ko Season 3, out January 14th from Doga Kobo.
And this is its official Crunchyroll debut, right? After being a flagship for one of their competitors.
Exactly. The licensing wars are very real, and getting Oshi no Ko is a major win for them. It solidifies their position with these kinds of pop culture critique / psychological thrillers.
And this season covers the mainstay arc.
It does. It's an 11-episode season, and we see Ruby Hoshino fully commit to finding the truth behind her mother A's death. But the critical part is how she does it. She starts consciously manipulating the entertainment industry, using lies and performance as her only weapons. It's a really compelling, dark turn.
So with all these massive sequels needing to maintain such a high bar for quality, the big question is, how are the studios handling it? Let's peel back the curtain a bit on Frieren's staffing decisions.
This is genuinely fascinating because it really does reflect a bigger industry strategy.
Yeah.
There's been a core creative shift. The new director for Season 2 is Tomoya Kitagawa. He was the chief episode director on some of Season 1's most memorable episodes.
But the original director, Kiichi Saito, the guy who also did Bibo Shiai, The Rock, He isn't gone. He's moved into a supervising director role.
Yeah.
Now, I have to challenge this a little. Frieren's success was built on its quiet, contemplative moments,
Right.
If the producer says this shift is to handle way more action, monsters, and demons, is there a risk they dilute the very core that made the show a hit?
That is the central tension they're navigating. And the producer, Yuichiro Fukushi from Madhouse, he addressed this. He said they assembled the best possible directorial lineup to handle the escalating combat. So they're leveraging Kitagawa's strength in action.
While keeping Saito on board to protect the aesthetic.
Exactly. Saito's job is to guard that overall feel, the emotional continuity. It's a high-stakes balancing act. Add more conflict without losing the soul of the story.
It's a smart management solution, really. Promote the talent who excels in one area while keeping the original architect to protect the vision. And that vision has to include the sound, right? The Frieren score is iconic.
And thankfully, Evan Call is back to compose the music. He's the genius behind scores like Violet Evergarden, of course. And a detail I just love from the sources is that Call openly said Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings soundtrack was a huge inspiration for Frieren.
You can totally hear it. That connection just immediately gives it this sense of scale and deep fantasy, even in the quietest moments. And having the series writer and character design team back just shows they're committed to keeping this thing stable.
Okay, let's talk endings. This season is delivering the final chapters for some serious heavy hitters. Essential viewing. And we have to start with the sci-fi western reimagining, Trigun Stargaze.
Premiering January 10th from Studio Orange, this is the final conclusion of the Trigun Stampede story. It picks up, 2.5 years after the Lost July disaster? Vash is in hiding but gets pulled back into a final fight with millions' knives.
And this is where Studio Orange gets to really show off. Their expressive 3D CGI is a huge selling point. The sources all indicate they are aiming to set a new visual benchmark with these final emotional showdowns.
And a big one for longtime fans. Millie Thompson is back.
Yes, she was missing from Stampede, and a lot of people felt that. She's back as Meryl's younger sidekick, which is just a perfect piece of nostalgia and closure for so many viewers.
Then, just a few days before that, on January 5th, we get another huge finale. Golden Kamuy Final Season from Brain's Base.
Yeah.
This show is just... it's more than a typical adventure.
Oh, it's a top-tier survival thriller for the mature Saiyan demographic. What really elevates it, and our sources always highlight this, is the incredible integration of Ainu culture and history. I mean, this isn't just some treasure hunt. The creators worked meticulously with Ainu scholars to avoid misrepresentation. It turned the series into this amazing educational vehicle on top of being a great story.
And this final season is it. Saichi Immortal Sugimoto and the Ainu girl Ashiripa are finally converging on the hidden gold, deciphered from those tattoos. It's high-octane adventure meets historical deep dives.
And to wrap up the big conclusions, there's the final Blaze of Fire Force. Season 3 Part 2 premieres January 9th from David Production.
This is the end. Following the manga's final chapters, Special Fire Force Company 8 are branded as traitors, hunted by the army.
And they're in a race against time to stop the Evangelist from creating this world-ending blaze. You can absolutely guarantee a finish filled with David Productions' signature explosive animation.
Okay, moving from those familiar endings to the really fascinating unknowns, let's get into the new guard. The shows that are really diversifying the landscape this season. Starting with what feels like a necessary dose of human drama. Journal with Witch, or Ikoku Nikki.
Premieres January 4th from Studio Shuka, and it's based on a critically acclaimed Josei manga. That's a key distinction for you to understand. Josei targets adult women, so it prioritizes grounded psychological drama over action. And this source material is top tier. It topped Da Vinci Magazine's Book of the Year list.
So if shonen's about finding your power, what's the focus of Josei?
It's about emotional renewal, solitude, and the slow, difficult process of building relationships. The story follows Makio Kudai, a reclusive 35-year-old novelist who really dislikes social contact. After a family tragedy, she ends up taking in her friendly 15-year-old niece, Asa.
So it's about their clashing personalities.
Completely. The whole story is them navigating grief and just learning how to connect. It's a real acting showcase, too, with Miyuki Sawashiro voicing Makio.
That's a powerful counterweight to a season of huge magical battles. And on the total opposite end of that spectrum, we have the sci-fi thriller with huge ambitions, The Darwin Incident.
This is based on another award-winning manga, also for the seinen demographic. So, think complex, often dark socio-political themes.
And the main character is Charlie, a brilliant Humanzee. I mean, that concept alone just screams social critique.
Precisely. The narrative uses Charlie, this being with superior physical abilities and human-level intelligence caught between two worlds, as a kind of moral mirror for us. The sources say the story explicitly challenges your values on human rights, on ideological divides, on prejudice.
The comparisons to Planet of the Apes feel very intentional.
Entirely. This title is a big signal of a shift towards prioritizing these complex socio-political themes in mainstream anime.
And that diversity extends even to romance and thrillers. We've got You and I Are Polar Opposites, a Shonen Jump romance that's praised for just being straightforward and refreshing.
And then on the darker side, there's Shibuyugi, playing death games to put food on the table, from Studio Dean. The premise is stark. A 17-year-old dropout enters these lethal death games, blowguns, buzzsaws, traps to pay her sister's medical bills.
That immediately draws comparisons to something like Squid Game.
Of course, because its core theme is a brutal social critique of financial desperation. It shows how the medium is constantly looking for mature ways to use extreme concepts to talk about very real-world economic pressures.
So we've covered the stacked lineup, but let's look at the infrastructure delivering it. Because this winter 2026 season really marks a huge milestone in Crunchyroll's hyper-global strategy.
Right, and that strategy is all about shrinking the time it takes to get localized content out there through this massive summed-up initiative. Most of the big titles, JJK, Frieren, Trigun, are getting rapid dubs in English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, German.
But the really interesting part is the push into new markets. What's striking is the specific choice to prioritize Hindi, Tamil, and Telugu dubs for certain fantasy titles.
Yeah, shows like A Misanthrope Teaches a Class for Demi-Humans. It shows a very clear, almost surgical strategy. They're using accessible fantasy and adventure genres with high cultural resonance to specifically penetrate the Indian market. It's not just about offering options, it's the economic foundation of the season.
And speaking of global influence in economics, we do need to touch on the discussion raised in the sources about the credibility of the Crunchyroll Anime Awards.
This is a nuanced critique, really, about industry transparency. Critics point out that the jury is mainly Western bloggers and journalists, with very few judges, only 4 out of 108 being industry veterans from Japan.
And they compare that to the Tokyo Anime Award jury, which is all active directors, producers, heads of companies in Japan.
Right. And the core of the critique is the potential conflict of interest. To clarify for you, Crunchyroll is owned by Sony. Sony also owns Aniplex, a massive anime production studio. The speculation from critics is that this creates a sort of closed loop, where content from their own ecosystem might get an unfair advantage.
That's the concern being raised.
That is the criticism. But it is very important to add the counterpoint. High-quality shows still get recognized. Despite that whole debate, Frieren Season 1 still won major awards, like Best Drama and Best Director for Keiichiro Saito. So while the structure is being debated, artistic quality is still breaking through.
So after all that, what does this season mean for you, the viewer? This isn't just about volume. It feels like a statement about the maturity of the medium itself.
Precisely. Winter 2026 confirms the industry can deliver exceptional quality across the board, from powerhouses like Mappier, Madhouse, and Orange. But at the same time, it shows a growing appetite for nuanced, award-nominated material that explores deep psychological issues like Journal with Witch or the Darwin Incident.
It's an incredibly well-balanced season.
It is. You have everything you need. From the pure action of the JJK Culling Game to the philosophy of Frieren and the sharp social critique from the New Guard. It's a goldmine for anyone who wants to be really informed on where anime is right now and where it's going.
And here's a final thought for you to mull over. We've talked about these highly visible shifts in production staff moving experienced, award-winning directors into supervising roles while promoting new talent. So the real question for the industry might not just be what stories get adapted next, but who will be the next generation of creative leaders guiding these massive franchises to their conclusions.
That changing of the guard is arguably the most important subplot of the entire season.